These 15 habits held up the strongest generation this country ever had. And you saw every one of them. Number 1 is not something they did. It is something they let you see. And it is what held the other 14 up. I went through 80 years of Gallup data, Supreme Court records, and more than 70 sources. Number 8 has an exact date of death. Number 4 is not a habit at all. It is a number, 24,637. And number 3 fit into 22 words. Your parents are gone and cannot tell it. Your children never saw it. You are the last one who remembers. And if you think this went away when America stopped believing, belief barely moved. What emptied out was the house. Number 15, grace at the table. Nobody touched a fork. The food was on the table, steam coming off it, and 40 seconds standing between a hungry child and the first bite. And a different one of you said it every night. You remember the terror of your father turning his eyes toward you. Now here is the part you will not expect. In 1951, Norman Rockwell painted an old woman and a boy saying grace in a crowded diner. They paid him $3,500. In 2013, it sold for $46 million. The most expensive American painting ever sold at auction is somebody giving thanks before a meal. Nobody banned grace. The table broke. And a blessing does not work if there is nobody sitting across from you. 5 seconds. Let the youngest one say it. Saturday, 9 at night. Number 14. Sunday started the night before. The tub was filled once. The children went in by order, the smallest one last, in water gone warm and gray. The shoes lined up by the door, and your mother still standing at 10 at night, starching a collar. Nobody was going to look at that closely. And hold on to this one. No woman walked into that church with her head uncovered. Not Catholic, not Baptist, not Methodist. If she left her hat at home, she pinned a tissue to her head with a bobby pin before she crossed the threshold. In a working family, there were 2 kinds of clothes: work clothes and Sunday clothes. One good thing, saved for the only place that deserved it. Then came, come as you are. In 10 years, it was finished. What was lost was not the clothing. It was the rehearsal. Shine your shoes on Saturday. And walking into that room, they made you stand up with a book under your arm. Number 13. The order was draw. A row of children on their feet, the Bible pressed against their ribs. The teacher called out a chapter and a verse. And then he went quiet. 2 seconds. 3. And then, draw swords. 40 Bibles opening at once. That sound. Thin paper at full speed. And the first child who found it shot straight up with a finger pinned to the page. It was called the sword drill. And they were not teaching you the Bible. They were teaching you speed. Because one day, you were going to need to find something in there by yourself, at night, with nobody beside you. 60 years later, you still know those verses. Because nobody taught them to you. They made you run for them. 1 verse a week. Let the child find it, not you. That Bible was yours. The one in the house was too heavy for a child, and what was written in it was not Scripture. Number 12. The Bible that was not a book. It weighed more than 15 pounds. Leather, metal clasps, and no child opened it without permission. The first pages were blank. There, in handwriting, were the births, the marriages, the deaths. Your mother's hand under your grandmother's hand, under the hand of a woman nobody ever met. Before there was a public records office, A lot of people did not exist on any official paper. Women, babies who died at 3 days old, slaves. That page was the only place in the world where you existed. And here comes the chill. When a man applied for a military pension, he had to prove when he was born, and there was no such thing as a photocopy. So they tore the page out. They mailed it to the government, and it never came back. To this day, there are pages from family Bibles sitting in files in Washington. Names written by a mother in a kitchen. A man handed over the record of his own blood so he could eat. Take any Bible. Write 3 names in your own hand. And the one who opened that book at night was not your mother. Number 11. Your father read out loud. Supper ended. The plates went away, and nobody got up. He reached out, and that book came to the table. He came home from the plant with his hands cracked open, and he stumbled over the strange names. It had a name. They called it the family altar, and that was not a figure of speech. The kitchen table was the altar, and the man who walked in smelling like grease was the priest. A child was watching the strongest man he knew sit down in front of something bigger than himself and bow his head. And nobody had to argue about it. There was no night when he closed that book and announced he was done reading. He just did not open it one night. And he did not open it the next night either. That is how a 100-year-old habit dies. 5 verses. Let them see you holding the book. Not everything in that house was read. Some of it was sung. Number 10. The piano in the parlor. Between 1890 and 1900, pianos in American homes grew 5 times faster than the population. By the turn of the century, there was 1 million of them. 1 million pianos. In a country still lighting itself with kerosene. On a farm, there was no telephone and no radio. The only entertainment was the stretch between supper and bed. And somebody sat down and played. Usually a daughter. And usually hymns. The whole family sang. Badly. Out of tune. And it did not matter. Because nobody was listening from outside. Music was not received. It was made. And the death of this fits into 4 words. Radio killed the piano. For the first time, a house with no musicians could have music. Nobody complained. But a family that sings is doing something together. A family that listens is just in the same room. Your voice is still there. It is still flat. Sing anyway. All of this happened inside one house. The next one stopped an entire country. Number 9. Sunday was closed. A Sunday in 1955. Look down a main street. Nothing. Shutters down. Dark windows. Nowhere to spend $1. They were called the Blue Laws. And they were the law. In Massachusetts, all the way to 1985, it was illegal to sell 42 categories of merchandise on the weekend. Clothing, furniture, televisions. That is yesterday. Listen to this one. A hardware store could sell you nails, but it could not sell you a hammer. Sunday was not a day off. It was an empty day. And an empty day forces you to stay with your family, on your porch, with no excuse not to look each other in the face. It was not rest. It was a day when there was nowhere to run. In 1961, the Supreme Court saved those laws. But to save them, it had to say they were not religious. And when a holy day turns into a practical day, somebody eventually finds something more practical to do with it. State by state, the stores opened. And that morning, they killed something else. Something that is not written in any law. Number 8. Sunday night service. You went back. That is the part younger people do not believe. You had already gone in the morning, and at 7 at night, the whole family put their coats back on, and went again. The night service was church with its shoes off, less light, more hymns. People stood up and told the room what had happened to them that week, in front of everybody. That was your first training in telling the truth in front of other people, and your last. And listen to what killed it, because it is not what you think. It was not a loss of faith. It was the stores. As long as Sunday stayed closed, that evening had no competition. The moment the blue laws fell, it filled up with options. Movies, games, shopping centers. People chose, and they did not come back. Today, about 5% of American churches still hold it. Two numbers on this list died together. One Sunday evening, let somebody say something real, and between those two trips out the door, there was a meal. Number 7, there was always room for one more. Your mother would spot a new face, or a widow sitting alone, and she would say, "Come eat with us." No warning. The roast got stretched. A chair got carried in from the back room, and the children ate, standing up. And there is a word that proves it. In half this country, fried chicken was called the gospel bird, or just the preacher bird, because chicken was a luxury, and it came to the table on one day only. Sunday, when the pastor came to eat. And these were not rich people. These were people stretching one chicken across 9. There is always room for one more. Nobody banned it. Visitors just stopped showing up. Now you find an opening 3 weeks out, and you call it plans. A house you can walk into without calling first does not exist anymore. This Sunday, invite somebody this Sunday. What comes next is what got handed over, and it came out of a pocket that had nothing to spare. Number 6, the envelope had 2 sides. It came in the mail in January. 52 envelopes, one for every Sunday, and on each one, a printed number. That number was your family. The church did not write down your name. It wrote down your number. You could be 143 for 30 years running, and it had something no envelope has today. It was split in 2. One side for your church, the roof, the furnace, the salary of the pastor. The other side for missions. People 5,000 miles away who would never know your name. But the thing that mattered happened in the PEW. The children had their own envelope. A small one, with their name on it and a few coins inside. And when the plate came around, that child was not watching his father put money in. He put it in himself. The first time a human being gives away something of his own is not when he has a paycheck. It is at 6 years old, with his hand shaking over a wicker basket. Now, it is an automatic transfer. And no child has ever seen his parents give anything away. Give a child a coin. Let him drop it in. That one you could see. You could touch it. The next one left nothing behind at all. Number 5, by name. At night, your mother said names out loud. She did not pray for the world or for peace or for anything so big it meant nothing. She said, Harold, and she stopped. She said, Mrs. Whitfield, who lost her husband in March, and she stopped again. She said, your name, and the specific thing she was worried about that week. And almost nobody tells this part. A lot of those women kept a notebook, names in pencil, crossed off when they resolved. But there were 2 ways of crossing a name off. A quick one, when it went well, and a slower one, with a heavier line, when it went the other way. That notebook was a census of the pain on your street, and to write it, you had to have asked. It died because we stopped knowing the names of our neighbors. 3 names, out loud, tonight. And there was one night when only one name was said. a child, his name, for 8 hours straight. Number 4, and this is not a habit. It is a number, 24,637. That is how many American children died of pneumonia in 1939. In 1 year, in 1996, it was 800. And that does not mean people were careless. Penicillin was not available to civilians until 1945. A 4-year-old with a fever of 104. The doctor comes, touches his forehead, and there is nothing he can do. The medicine that would save that boy has not been invented yet. He picks up his bag and says the only honest thing he has: "We are going to have to wait." And then your mother sat down on the edge of that bed, and she did not move, and she prayed. That woman was not looking for comfort. It was the only thing there was. It was not something added on top of the treatment. It was the treatment. It was everything a human being could do for a child that night, and she did it until the sun came up. Then, penicillin arrived. Thank God it did. But when medicine took over the body, we stopped sitting on the edge of the bed. We lost the fear, and we lost the watch. If somebody in your house is sick, sit there. The last 3 happened where there were witnesses. Number 3, one morning in June, the bell rang. You stood up next to your desk, and the whole class said the same thing at the same time in that flat voice of 30 children who know it by heart. But you did it with everybody else. That was the entire point. On June 25, 1962, the Supreme Court ruled that a state could not write a prayer and have children recite it in class. And here is the part almost nobody knows. That prayer was 22 words long. A board of education wrote it so it would not offend anyone. And it was voluntary. Any child could sit it out with a signature from his parents. 22 optional words. That is what went to the Supreme Court. I am telling you how it happened, not whether it was right or wrong. In September, you went back to school. The bell rang. You stood up, and there was a silence. Nobody explained anything to you. The teachers did not know what to say. They moved on to arithmetic. A child had learned that there was a moment in the day when 30 people did the same thing at the same time, and then it stopped existing. That is what left that room, not the prayer, the unison. It is the one of the 15 you cannot fix. You can only tell it. Night falls, and on the living room floor, something happens that no court ever touched. Number 2, the living room had a direction. The radio went off, and with nobody giving the order, the family got down on its knees. But look at what they were facing. Before television, an American living room did not point anywhere. The radio did not ask you to look at it, and the chairs were set facing each other, so that family knelt inward, in a circle. Every face turned toward the others. They could all see each other. The boy saw his father. The father saw the boy. Nobody could fake it. Then the set arrived. By the 1960s, close to 90% of American homes had one. And the television did not go into the living room. It rearranged the living room. It replaced the fireplace as the heart of the house. And the furniture turned. The couch, the armchairs, even the chair that belonged to grandfather. A whole room rotating until it faced the same wall. The living room still had a direction, but it was no longer inward. And you cannot kneel in a circle in a room where everything points at a box. Nobody banned this. They moved the furniture, turned 2 chairs, let them face each other. But number 1 is still not this. Number 1. And it is not anything they did. Grace was said in front of the children. The envelope was filled in front of the children. The father read out loud in front of the children. He knelt in front of the children. The mother said the names with the door open in front of them. It was not what they did. It was that you could see it. A child did not learn it. He copied it. Then faith became a private thing, a personal matter, between you and God and nobody else. And it sounded respectful. But look at what it did to the house. In 1937, 73% of Americans belonged to a congregation, and it stayed near 70 for 60 years. In 2020, it fell below half, and people read that number and say, America lost its faith. But what disappeared was not the faith. It was the witness. A child cannot copy something you never let him see. We did not stop believing. We stopped doing it in front of them. And without that, the other 14 had no floor. They fell, one by one. You saw this. Somebody in your house said a name out loud before bed. Somebody sat on the edge of a bed and did not move until morning. And you are the only person alive who remembers it. And notice something. All 15 happened behind closed doors, with the curtains drawn. But there was one day, a week, when it all went out into the street. That day had rituals too, 15 of them at least. And they did not fade out slowly the way these did. They changed all at once. That is the video on your screen right now. 15 forgotten Sunday rituals American families did before church changed forever. Open it and look for number 11, because they put a date on that one.